Hi, this is Dee at Aloha Astro. Um, some of you have had readings with me and some have not. Primarily, my main interest when I read for somebody is to use their natal chart, which is why I will ask for your time and location, day, month, day, year, time, location of birth, so that I can generate a chart for you, and then that becomes part of your reading. Now, some people have no idea what an astrological chart looks like. Other people may be familiar with their chart. Today I was looking at my own chart and the current transits to it because I have a birthday coming up. And then as I looked at some other charts, like my progress chart and my solar return chart, I realized that not everybody is aware of all the different variations of charts. And one thing that is important to remember if you're relatively new to astrology is that your natal chart is never not with you. Just like when a child is born and we take a picture of that infant and then they grow up year after year and they look a little bit different until they become an old person and then they've matured. Basically, your chart never changes, it never goes away. It's kind of like that picture of that infant, but you will continue to grow and evolve and have experiences throughout your life so that you overcome challenges within your own natal chart. You learn the lessons of your chart, you do the work of what your soul agreed to do here, and you may have different responses and different reactions and different ways of using your planetary energy as you change and grow and mature based on the transits to your chart. And very briefly, when we look at a natal chart, we see that the chart wheel here has these segments or 12 different slices of pie. These are the houses or the different areas of life, and they are numbered counterclockwise in the center of the wheel. There are 4 darker angles here. These are the prominent angles, and they are the cusps of houses 1, 4, 7, and 10, which are very important areas of life. The ascendant or the first house of self, 7th house of the other or the partner, the 4th house of home, family, and your psychological foundations, the 10th house of your career and where you make a home for yourself out there in the world, where you are seen as an authority figure out in the world. So that's why those lines are darker within the chart. And the astrologer would look at the overall pattern of the planets and then take a look at these lines within the chart. These are aspects, and aspects are representing exchanges of energy between planets where they may be supportive to each other or where they may be challenging. In terms of timing and transits, over here we can see a list of the transiting planets. And here we see them around the outer edge of my chart wheel. This shows where they are right now. Some move faster, some move slower. When I'm doing a reading for somebody, I'll look at the natal chart and then I'll take a look at the transits and be able to help answer some of your questions as to timing and when it might be good to do certain things. And sometimes I'll pull out my ephemeris, which I can thumb ahead into the future and look to see when a certain planet will, for instance, if I want to know when Saturn is going to come off of my descendant because it's feeling a little uncomfortable where it's sitting right there. If I want to know when it's going to, let's say, give me my next Saturn return, when it's going to come up to my natal Saturn, I can look ahead in a book that actually gives the dates of all the motions of the planets. So if you were asking me a particular question, I might be able to look ahead several years in advance and see when a certain planet that might influence you in a certain way will be moving through a certain house or joining a certain planet in your chart that could activate the energy of the planet that it joins or create some event or opportunity within your life for you to act upon. So that's a natal chart. And basically, no matter what kind of chart we are looking at, we read it as a chart, whether it's a chart of an event, of something happening that became natalized, such as a wedding or a graduation or the incorporation of a business or the birth of a child or adopting a pet or whatever it is that suddenly became an event and a thing, we can create a chart for it, and we would read it as if it is any other chart. Now, there are other types of charts that I look at to take a look at influences going on in somebody's life. Tonight I was looking at my solar return chart. This means that this is a chart of me being born again, basically. This shows where I am right now in Johnson City, Tennessee, and it shows the exact time that the sun will come back to the same place it was at the time I was born way back in 1961. And that won't necessarily happen at the same time of day or maybe even on the very same day. And it will definitely or probably give me a different rising sign or ascendant because my location is different. If I decided to visit Tokyo on my birthday this year, I would potentially have a different ascendant or rising sign. My location determines my ascendant. So the first thing I noticed about my solar return chart is that I'm heavily weighted to the left side. Mercury in the first house. I know I have some writing to do this year, especially with a busy third house, which is a communication house, a writing house, house of ideas. Money may be a major focus for me because the sun is in the second house of money this year. And there may be some looking into my subconscious, my beliefs, my motivations. And on some level, I think I have to take my being different and accepting it as this is just who I am. That basically my own unique view on the world, or having perhaps a different lifestyle, or taking my living as a single person very seriously may be an important focus for me this year. So that's a brief look at my solar return chart. We can also synthesize any chart by looking at how the planets are sorted into their qualities of cardinal, fixed, and mutable, or the elements of fire, air, earth, and water. And all of astrology is extremely elemental, and sometimes when we look at it from its very simplest level, from the elemental level, we gain the greatest understanding. So this year I look to be well balanced in the energy of the different elements. I am definitely strongest in terms of the cardinal and the mutable energies, which means boss-like or initiating, and flexible and adaptable. The fixed energy is my moon and sun. That's my follow-through. The endurance, the doing things day after day after day, or taking something from start to finish. So that is how the year looks for me in terms of my solar return and where my focus may be, which may be a bit introverted and self-aware, or looking to understand myself better or advance myself in terms of things that I need to say and to share, and to have a better financial foundation in my future. Now, another chart that I also look at frequently for people, especially if I want to confirm something I'm seeing in transits, or if I want to see if the transits are being backed up by something else. And that is the progress chart. The progress chart is more of an emotional chart. To me, when I read a progress chart, I'm looking at the energy of who this person has become through the progression of planets over time. So it's like an unfolding of consciousness, and it does show an emotional tone. It is not as active a chart, in my opinion, but it would still tie in with events or transits and perhaps give them a greater importance, especially if there's an interconnection between two charts. And when I look at multiple charts, I also compare them to each other, or I look for alignments between charts to see if, for instance, my solar return chart this year, one of the things I noticed right away is that this is reversed to what my natal chart is in terms of my ascendant and descendant and my IC and my MC. It's a flip chart for me. So I will be turned upside down in some way energetically this year, or my entire point of view may shift. Rather than approaching the world with my natal chart, Gemini ascendant, this year I may approach with more of the Sagittarius fire than the Gemini air. And perhaps there will be more discernment with my Virgo midheaven this year with my solar return chart. So I'm having an interesting year in that I'm having the mirror image to my own natal chart. And here you can see my ascendant Gemini, my descendant Sag, and IC is Virgo, MC. Well, actually, my MC here is still Aquarius, but I have Pisces up at the top of the chart in my 10th house of career. So should be an interesting year, and it may pull me in outside of myself in a way that's different, or I may delve more deeply into myself because of the weight that is in the first, second, and third house, which are houses where we approach life from where we project ourselves, how other people view us, our personal finances, our formative thoughts and ideas, people we treat as brothers and sisters. So there's a great deal of focus on my immediate environment and myself this year. Now, that progress chart, I'm actually very, very pleased with my progress chart right now. And why would that be? Well, look at the beautiful geometry in here. These aspects are very dynamic. Whenever you have any enclosed geometric patterns within a chart, there is more energy tied into them. And there's definitely a great deal of geometric patterns that you can see in here. There's a mystic rectangle. There's a grand shrine. We've got a kite going on. There's numerous patterns within this chart that are helping all these planets to express, even though they're widely scattered, they are still getting a lot of support from each other so that they can express very well. And I can see that there's a strong emphasis on career, money, getting my word out, doing business, making the money through the business, getting a better handle on my money for the long term, and accepting that I am a unique individual, especially on the creative level, or being okay with me being crazy or thinking differently, and even talking about metaphysical things or eighth house subjects, which can be very metaphysical. And that is something that I've always been a little bit uncomfortable with, because very often people hear, oh, you're an astrologer, and they just think that's crazy, or that's nonsense, that's woo-woo. Well, I'd have to disagree, but I don't like to argue. And all I can say for anybody who has any questions about astrology is, if you don't know, why don't you learn? And why don't you ask some questions? Why don't you have a reading and see if it actually is relevant to you? Before you close the door on something, open up your mind, give it a try, and see if it's something that you could use in your life that helps to guide you. Now, let me go back here to the chart selections. Just to give you an idea of how many different types of charts there are. This is what we have to choose from over here at astro.com, where I generate charts. Tons tons and tons and tons. I don't even know what some of these charts are about, but I love to learn. And that is one thing that you will find if you begin to study astrology, is that there is no end. There is absolutely no end to what you can learn, and that it continues to evolve. There's continual growth and learning and understanding and exploration, and there's the continual examination of people's charts to help us to do that. This is a very good resource if you'd like to learn about astrology, astro.com, and you can get plenty of free charts there where you can learn more about yourself. Put in your birth data there and familiarize yourself with some things about astrology. And then if you feel like you want to actually talk with somebody about your chart or want to learn more about your chart, look me up, come visit, book a reading, and I would love to be your astrologer. So that's that, and thank you for listening. And I hope you learned a little bit about what a chart looks like and what it can do for you, and the different types of charts that I work with when I work with people. So on that note, I'm going to close these charts up and shut down my recording. And thank you for visiting.